Hey, welcome back to the podcast. So excited today. We have been working on this for a while. I finally have the Edna Kimble on my show. Little backstory, long time in real estate. She does 130 times more business than the average agent in the U.S. Did you know that?
I did not.
130 times. We're going to unpack what she does, how she does, all the sort of behind the scenes insights. I've got like 12 questions I want to ask you. So, Edna, you're selling 150 homes. The team combined is selling, 360 plus homes a year. Give them a little backstory. Like, how long you been in the business? What got you in? And then I'm going to attack you with a whole bunch of really interesting questions. So talk to us.
Okay, so 21 years in the business.
Mm-hmm.
The first 10 years, didn't know what I was doing, had no clue.
Yeah.
Then I had to get serious because of a financial tragedy, so to speak. And so I was running around 100 units myself and just dying. And I was online thinking there's got to be an easier way. I clicked on a button.
Clicked on an ad.
and I got a call immediately.
Yeah.
And I wish I could remember who it was because they were really solid. And they had me book a flight while I was on the phone with them.
Yes.
And fly out to Anaheim for one of your meetings.
Yes.
And I was hooked. And then the next aspect was just figuring out how to make it work and, who is responsible, when it should be done, and making sure also that I stay true to myself.
Yes.
Because I'm really big on it should always be relational instead of transactional. So how can I do more but still stay true to that?
This is why I wanted you on my show, my dear. So this is, you're all the questions are going to be perfect. So just to be clear, when someone hears you're 10 years in and you're like, I'm struggling and I've got all these financial problems and I'm selling 100 homes a year, that doesn't add up for most people. So what was going on that you were like in a hard way, in hardship? You were doing 100 transactions a year.
Right. But in my market, the average at that time was about $190,000 per unit. So it just was not. And again, just because of a family situation, I was the breadwinner. So I had to step it up and make something happen. I had no assistant. I had no team. I was just doing it all myself, and it was a hot mess.
So I think everyone listening right now is probably imagining, and matter of fact, this will be fun whether you're on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this. I would be in the comments asking Edna questions. So later on, you can go inside YouTube or social and see some of the questions. Because the first question I would ask is, how in the world were you selling 100 homes a year by yourself?
Again, very messily. Like one time we were 2 weeks away from closing, and I called the title company to see how things were going, and they were like, "You never sent us the contract." Yeah. So I don't recommend it. Don't do it that way.
Yes.
Hire the coach first and then start doing the volume. Yes.
Okay, so we're going to get into it. So the first question I wrote down for you is, you're selling 130 times the national average of agents. Now, not certainly the average of people that are listening to my show, but that's the national average. What would you say is sort of broadly like the secrets of your success?
I always get calls, like, how do you do it? What is the number one thing? And there's no secret sauce. Like there's no secret app or,
or technology or marketing one
absolutely.
thing.
I would say if you take care of the client, they're going to take care of you.
Yes.
And it's relational. And, believe it or not, during COVID, I sold a bazillion homes. But those are not the people who are still showing up at my client experiences.
Yeah.
The ones that are showing up are the ones that I still have to, meet with, and we walk through the process, and I engage with them, and I educate them, and I help them in other I'm like, hey, you don't have a trust. Why are you buying this as an individual?
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of their counselor through all things real estate.
Yes.
And so then their sister calls, and their students start calling me, and then their neighbor starts calling me to come sell the house, and then grandma wants to move closer, and that's a referral from another, network or area, and then she moves in and buys a home, and then the other children want to move in, and it just snowballs. Yeah.
So I think you have, and I want to unpack more of this, a skill set that my very first speech coach, a guy named Ron Arden, he and I were sitting down one day and he said, what do you think is the secret to the most successful people on the planet? Like, what is it that they have that the average person doesn't have? And the word that I came up with was charisma. And my definition of charisma wasn't like, hey, flashy, look at me. It was look you in the eyes, make you feel like the most important person on the planet. And then when that ended, you made the next person feel the same way. And I'm just thinking of now you selling 150 homes a year, and I'm just in our you give me that. So how do you scale that? How do you do that without skipping a beat? Because I mean, you're going to sell 150 homes personally this year.
Correct.
And then the team will do the balance to get to 360.
Right.
How are you able to do that and not be distracted by your phone or thinking about the deal that fell apart or did I send the contract to title? Like, how do you do it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously I have a great team that works with me. I have a full-time assistant, transaction coordinator that really kind of keeps me on focus. But at the end of the day, if you really don't understand that it's about the person, if they're mad, it's not, I can't take it personally.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? They are going through something. And so I've always said it would be kind of cool if we had to sell and buy a home every year just to remember those pain points.
I agree.
Because sometimes when that person is just going off and being so mad because the closing date, they're doing that with me, but not actually at me. So I just have to keep reminding myself that I can't take it personally.
Yes.
But it is very personal for them. And if I can keep remembering that, then it does make it easier to, stay engaged with them and empathize with them and walk them through, okay, well, here's what we can do to offset that pain point, and really just kind of help them and counsel them and understand that I would be frustrated too if I was in that situation. Yeah.
So you say that with like such elegance and grace and compassion and empathy. And yet there's a good chance the person listening right now is like, bitch, like, it's hard for me. You don't understand.
Well, and my team is like, okay,
I can't believe I just said bitch on my pod. But you know what I'm saying. Like, there's some dude right now going, is he going to call me? Yes, I am.
Well,
how do you do that?
So a little bit of it, because I take all of my calls on speakerphone.
Yeah.
So that the team... So I just think that there are no secrets in real estate. Now, if I'm negotiating something and we're talking about numbers and it's not locked down yet and a team member might be, I'll pick up the phone and do it. But otherwise, I want the team to know when I make a mistake, they need to know this happens and owning it so that you cannot make the same mistake again. That's a big part of it. Yeah. But also, I think it just makes everyone feel like this job is truly doable as long as you lean into what the issue is or the problem.
Right.
The minute you're like, okay, I'm going to deal with that tomorrow, that's when it starts becoming a problem.
Yes.
So I, obviously I would love to say I'm always empathetic and handle it with grace. And I mean, there's some days that I do feel like a punching bag.
Sure.
But that's on me. The client is truly going through all of these things that happen at the last minute with the transaction. And one of our biggest goals is we try to gamify it. And so
unpack that.
So the goal is that if the client has to contact you and ask what's happening with the transaction, where are we at with the transaction, what's the next step with the transaction, we lost that round.
Losing.
Yeah. And you can only lose so many rounds before you're game over.
Yeah.
So we talk about that a lot, and it sounds crazy, but we kind of like go, oh, awesome job, when they're like, okay, I messed up and here's what I didn't do. And we're like, okay, awesome. What can we do next time?
Yeah.
I tell the story about one time I was at a closing and I was sitting across from this realtor, and she's kind of was a hot mess, no longer in the business. And there was an issue with the door key and a garage remote. And she said, this happens, and she used some explicitives that I'm not going to use, but she said, this happens every single time and just is going off. And I thought, okay, it's happened to me a few times too, but it's never going to happen again.
Right.
Right? So if it's happened once, Okay. But if it's happened twice, there should be an S.O.P. What are we going to do about it? How are we going to prevent it? And it's the same with responding or getting in front of problems with clients, you know,
So I love the gamification of we're going to over communicate. Yeah. We're not going to be reactive. It's, you know, you and I have a lot of similar values. Action solves everything.
Yes.
You know, communication solves everything. Be in front of it. Like when you don't want to make the phone call anyway.
Yes.
When you get the text, respond. When you get the email, respond. What would you say to the person that's listening that is like, I want to do it, but I get in my head and I get, you know, like I don't want to bug them or, you know, whatever the story is. Like, what do you say to that person that like they're getting punched, but they're also putting their chin out and asking for it versus trying to solve it? Yeah. What do you say to that person?
So I don't think that you're really not wanting to bug them. I think it's just painful sometimes to call them and say nothing is going on with your home.
Right.
But my team will actually text me a screenshot of a conversation and they'll just say words and I'll go blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And then they'll kind of change it and make it their own.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. I have
here's what the client said. What do I say back?
Yes,
to them?
yes.
I love
but
that.
Now we have Tom AI to help with that.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's really, it's helping me a lot, Tom. Thank you, by the way. So
I just did an entire coaching session with Paul Rushforth, right? Who's, 500 transactions a year, huge team in Ottawa. And he's like, I've got 3 questions. And I'm like, yeah, go ahead and go. I just all 3 questions into Tom AI. And I'm like, and then I just do screen share. And he goes, yeah, I need to start using that. I was
yes,
like, yes,
seriously,
yes,
it's a game changer for sure.
Okay, different question. With such huge volume of transactions and business and clients and experiences, how do you keep it so personal? I know I'm still flirting with the same question. But
Sure.
How do you scale that personalization between you, a couple assistants, a couple salespeople? Give us an example of how you're able to stay in action, being ahead of it. Like, talk to us about that.
Okay. Well, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, but let me lean into that. So, for one, I just have a really strong morning routine because you got to keep your energy level up, and you've got to really enjoy what you do, and so you've got to have a personal life, and that starts with a good routine. And there's certain things on my calendar that are non-negotiable.
Yes.
Every Wednesday morning, I have 30 minutes set aside, and it just says RMF, and that is the newest grandbaby. Yes. Right? Yeah. So, I just run over, do a little play date with her, and then I'm back in it full blast. And cool. So there's things like that if it's on your calendar, it's just non-negotiable, because if it was a closing, you're not going to say, "Oh, I'm not going to do that." You know. So
let me restate the question. What's a typical day look like for you? And how much client interaction do you have? And how are you and the team staying ahead of all those conversations?
Yeah. So 4 a.m., I'm an early morning person. I get up. I have about 30 minutes to just kind of chill and do my thing. And then I'm in the gym for an hour. And then I'm always in my office chair between 7:15 and 7:30. I do a talking head video every morning. Yep. Non-negotiable. And that's the thing is, there's so many reasons why you can't get it done, but that's just fake. And then my assistant, Brittany, comes in at 8 a.m. and we typically will do a pipeline session. Where are we at? What's happening with this? That type of thing.
What do you mean pipeline? Pipeline leads, pipeline active contracts, pipeline listings? Be more specific.
It's really more about where we're at in a transaction. So if it's pending, who do we need to call? Who do we need to push? Is there a title issue? Let's get in front of it. And then she also alerts me if one of the team members have kind of hit a wall, whether it's with a transaction or with a client, that type of thing.
How long does that take? I mean, okay, watch. How many escrows do you have right now?
We're sitting on about 46.
Okay, and then how many active listings do you have right now?
It's a little over 100, but only about 40 of those are residential.
Okay, all right, but still, so let's
and
say
those are mine, not the team. Yeah.
But I'm looking at your coach. Like that's 80 to 90 to 100 active listings to go through, and 46 pendings to go through.
Right.
How much time does that take?
We knock it out in an hour.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Like you got to be like,
yes.
boom, 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 do this, do that, do that. Is it a lot of that?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Well, and again, my assistant, I brought her on and I trained her, and when something falls apart, we say, okay, next time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we put something in place. So she has, we just call them red flags. Like if a VA offer comes in on a mobile home, she's like, I don't remember exactly what the thing is, but red flag. And I'm like, okay, great. Yep. And then we're like, we got to do this and this and this. And if there's a home with a well, we deal with a lot of rural area. That's a red flag.
Yes.
So we know it's going to take 28 days to get a water test rather than the standard, So we just have a lot of built-in S.O.P.s, and we know what needs to happen. And if it's happened more than once, we try to build it in.
So remind me, is that a daily or is that once a week?
No, that's daily.
Every day?
Yeah.
Every day?
Well, Monday through Friday.
Yeah,
and so Tuesday is probably the day that we are a little bit hit or miss because we do a team meeting in the morning instead.
Sure.
Yeah.
So so you're up at 4, you give yourself a little half hour of grace, then you go to the gym, you're in your chair at 7:15, you record a video, then you meet with your assistant for an hour, you go through every pending transaction. Some people would be exhausted at that point, right? What do you do next?
So then it's calling people and updating sellers what's happening, updating buyers where we're at, calling maybe. I don't have to do a lot with the title company again because Brittany takes care of so much of that.
Yes.
But sometimes I do have to get involved. So it's the actual phone calls. Seller
interaction,
absolutely,
problem solving.
Solving.
We might need to reduce the price and everything in between.
Yes, and we all have those clients that they don't really. There's nothing to update, but they feel like they need to hear from you, and so again, we gamify that, and that's like maybe the woman who is moving into assisted living and doesn't really have anyone to talk to, and so it's going to be a 45-minute call, and so I'll try to schedule that call where I'm driving out or something, and I'll just keep them on the phone until they say, Edna, I have to go.
And you're like, I got a 5 minutes more of my drive.
And it works though because then they feel like I didn't rush them. They were heard. They were understood. And a lot of times the next week they don't pick up when I call.
Yes.
And it goes to voicemail. I leave them a message, and it works out great.
I'm going to say this word, and please take it in an absolute like compliment. You are like maniacal. Do you know what I mean? Like you're like a Terminator. Like for the person listening right now, think about this. She's up at 4, 30 minutes of hanging out, an hour in the gym, 7:15, she records a video, and then she spends an hour. People are like, how do you do so many transactions? Well, I think you probably need to spend an hour every day with your transaction coordinator, going through and making sure that everything is taken care of, gamifying it. Yeah. And then you're on calls, communicating with customers, solving problems, get it priced right. This is what we need to do.
Absolutely.
At what point does that end? Is it noon now, or is it like 10 in the morning?
I would say it's probably closer to like 1 o'clock. I try to make most of my listing appointments from 1 o'clock on. Okay. Usually I try to put it on the hour, so I remember I've got to be there at 2, I've got to be there at 4, I've got to be there at 6. Yeah. Those are kind of the sweet spots for me, so that I know where I'm at throughout the day. So
let's. Even though that's on my list and it's much farther down, let's delve into that. So how many listing appointments will you go on this year? We're sitting here in September 2024.
I'm going to say around 265.
Okay, so 265 listing appointments in a year. I have 1,000 questions. Okay, but if you said the framework of my appointment, first I do this, then I do that, then I do this, then I do that, then I do this. Like, what's the framework that you follow?
So that's the most important thing. I again, for years, I screwed all that up. Number one, you've just got to know the market. Know the market. Print off the tax records, print off everything, the history of MLS. Go to Zillow, print off the Zestimate, right? Know what the comparables are, what is sold, what's on the market. Now we're getting a lot of listings that are not in our MLS. They're in like maybe a different MLS, which is kind of weird because they'll be 2 hours away. So it's just being hyper aware and knowing the market. So having all of that, and having it printed off and having gone through it. We have pre-made packages because if you're expecting to get the listing, you shouldn't be putting all of this together.
Right. And you're going to go on 265 of them.
Exactly.
So here's
locked
your thing.
And loaded.
Go. Yep.
Absolutely locked and loaded. And then showing up on time, which is 15 minutes early.
I love that.
Right?
That's why you give yourself the 2 hours?
Yes. And so if I'm not going to be 15 minutes early, my assistant calls and makes them aware she got hung up. She's so apologetic. She's going to be slightly late.
Yeah.
And so then when I actually show up at 1 o'clock
on time,
and they say, "Oh, you were on time," I was like, "Well, no, I feel like I'm late," and because it's their time is valuable.
Yes.
So it's just from the very first moment. Also, when I get the call, when I hang up, I send them a text message saying, "Here's all of the things you need to have ready or prepared," and it's everything from a house key to average cost of utilities. And if they say, "Well, I'm not really ready to list," I say, "That's totally fine. I'm still going to send you this list just so you're aware."
Yes.
And honestly, 9 times out of 10, I get there for the ones who say I'm not ready to list, and they have it all together.
Yeah.
So we just list and do the thing.
How often do you lose? I don't think you ever lose, but you learn.
Sure.
Right? But,
yeah,
how often do you not get the listing?
Absolutely. I'm going to say there were 3 this year.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of them, I was just telling Coach, I didn't like him. I didn't like the house.
Okay.
And I didn't like his price.
Okay.
But also, I had just had a medical procedure, so I didn't feel great.
How do you have that big of a smile on your face as you're like, I didn't like him, I didn't like the house, I didn't like the price?
Because what happened was I just said, when he said, "Well, I think I need to think about it." Well, that's usually when I get excited. I'm like, "Oh, game on,
close. All right,
game on,
objection
right?"
handling.
Yeah. And in this situation, I was just like, "Okay, that's fine." So I gathered everything up.
Yeah.
And I don't recommend this.
Yes.
And I left. And then 2 days later, he called me and he was like, "Okay, well, what is your number for you to take it?"
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
But just knowing where that line is, and I do have to be cautious because for me, a lot of it is I'm going to get it no matter what.
Yes.
And sometimes, they do want to overprice it
Sure.
or something like that. So we'll do a build-in of, okay, we're going to test the market for this 30 days, but you understand that I feel like this is a little bit of malpractice by me not.
Do you say that to people?
I do.
I love that.
I do, yeah. Well,
I love that line.
Got that from you or someone on one of these podcasts.
Yes, it wasn't me, but it's good. I'm stealing it from now on.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I do think they don't necessarily always hear everything you're saying. I feel like
Correct.
we're going in there and fire hosing them
Yes.
with so much information. And in 60 days, when the home hasn't sold, all they know is you weren't successful. So I will tell them up front, that we're going to test the market and that I want to make sure that this is not, malpractice by me saying your home would totally sell for this,
So if we go back to sort of the process, right, of what you do, you come in knowing everything inside and out about the marketplace, and you bring in Zillow. Do you show the Zillow's estimates? Or is it just?
I sometimes ask them if I need to. So one of the things I used to do is I would go in and say, "Here's Edna, and here's my team, and here's all the numbers."
Right.
And nobody cares. No one cares if you sold $1 million. They just want to know what can you do for them. And what I found is the less I talk, the better. So I ask them a few very pointed questions.
Give me an example.
So help me understand what will happen if the home sells really fast.
I mean, we're waiting on new construction. It's going to be, they're selling us is going to be done in 4 months. We were thinking it would sell, in the next 2 to 3 months and then close in 30 days. Can we time it that? Because we don't want to move twice.
Okay, that's important to know. So you're not wanting to move twice. Now, are you relocating locally or out of area?
We're actually going to be in North Dallas.
North Dallas? Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's closer to family, jobs. What's happening there?
All the above.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah,
I bet you're
grandkids,
excited.
the whole 9 yards.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yes.
Okay.
Hold on, I have to say to my son, not right away.
Hold off, please. And so I just kind of get into their business, but in a very gentle way, and have them start talking about themselves.
Their motivation and why they're doing this. And so what do you do when they're like, well, we just, we know home prices have gone up. We're not really in a rush. But if we can sell it for a crazy price, and I keep hearing people selling for a crazy price, if we can do that, then we would move.
Okay, tell me more about that, the crazy price.
Well, I saw a recent sale of yours, and I thought to myself, "There's no way that's going to sell for $385,000," and you sold it for like $405,000.
Yeah.
And I thought, my goodness, we bought this house 25 years ago, and I think we paid like $97,000 for it. If we can get $400,000 for this, we're going to retire, and we're going to move to Florida and get on a boat and I don't know, whatever they say. But you know what I mean? They're just the unmotivated.
Sure.
I want to sell. Or they want to sell, but they don't want to tell you the truth.
Right.
You've had a few of those.
Absolutely.
So what do you do in that scenario?
Yeah. So I always see, like at Summit or all of the meetings where people are doing role play.
Yeah.
And I always struggle with that because I feel like you don't have enough information until you've sat down at the table. I mean, I've got some great one-liners and I can always do that. And people are like, yeah, that's wow. But realistically, it's not the one-liner that's going to win them over, right? It's about... grandchildren, congratulations, that's amazing.
Yes.
So you're going to be busy following them around with sports, or is this a new grandchild?
It's a brand new grandchild.
Oh, that's amazing. And usually they just start blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And so then I take it back to, okay, so you're going to do new construction so that we can get you closer to those grandbabies.
Yeah.
You're hoping to hit the 400 mark,
Yeah.
but you do understand that realistically we might be a little south of that. How is that look for you?
Well, how south?
Well, we won't know until we run the numbers, and definitely want you to show me through this gorgeous home because what I find is usually there's some things that either you want to take care of or that you've forgotten to tell me about that you've upgraded that might make a difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you really lean on the emotional connection to get to the truth.
Absolutely.
And then you do a beautiful job then stacking up all of the reasons why they're going to sell.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, so let's talk about pricing.
Okay.
Just like go a little deeper on pricing. So like your typical sales price now, you were $190 11 years ago.
Fortunately,
what's it up to now?
We're at about $279 now.
Okay.
So
let's go. Let's go. So is it normal for someone that it's going to sell for $279, just using that as a number, that wants $325? What's the typical overpriced number for your sellers today?
I would say that if it's, if it really will sell for $279, they're probably hoping to list it for $3.
Okay.
Yeah. So but here's the thing. I also find that if I keep them talking, they understand that it's probably not going to.
Yeah.
And the key is to get them to understand. If you were selling your Ford Pinto so that you could buy your Mercedes, no one is going to pay you more for the Pinto so that you can purchase the Mercedes, right?
Yes.
And it's, I've got 4 or 5 of those
metaphor
little
examples.
Exactly. And they're like, yeah, you're right, but I don't know if I want to sell unless we hit that number. And I'm like, okay, well, I understand that. So, so what happens if you're not there at this time next year with the grandbabies?
Yeah.
And then you remind them of what the reasoning was that they were planning on moving.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they raised their hand. They called you. They pushed a button. They sent an email. And why are you in their home if they're really not going to sell?
Yeah.
So they're going to sell.
Yeah.
It's
so you don't play the game, is basically a lot of you understand in my market the sellers are this way and they don't have to sell, and I'm like, well, then why did they invite you over?
Okay. And here's the other thing is that's excuses, right? So that's something that the team and I work on is that, are you walking in there knowing that there's excuses as to why they may not list?
Yeah.
Or are you walking out of there knowing that you could have done a better job?
Yeah.
Right? So so there's no reason why you should not. They called you.
Bingo.
Right?
Bingo.
Like, who calls the pizza place and doesn't want a pizza, right? So they call, and then who else do you like? How many times do you let strangers in your home?
Yeah, I see. I have been saying that for like 3 decades.
Right?
Who in their right mind says, "Come over and have a conversation with me about selling my home"? Who just wanted someone to talk to?
Absolutely.
Like 1 out of a million crazies, maybe.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go a different direction.
Okay.
We can't say percentages. right? Because of, all things commissions.
Oh.
But so for the person listening, if I were to reflect back now on, so from August 17th to today is the 25th of September as we record this, it's been 40-ish days. I want to say in the mastermind I was in yesterday with like 41 people, all of them. The one I was in last Wednesday with a bunch of people that were, from all over the country, elite clients that were in for a day with me. I would say to them, because we can say this, if this is the median listing commission in your marketplace, and this would be less, and this would be more. So if you're only listening, I'm hand in the middle, going hand down and hand up. I would say conservatively, 90 to 95% of the people said, if this was the market, I'm now listing here. Like their side.
Okay.
No buy side, right? Because that's all separate now. The market's here. They can go down or they can go up. They're all going up. What about you?
Okay. And you're talking about the home price, or you're talking about the bananas?
The bananas.
Oh, okay.
We could say fees. We just can't talk commission percentages,
fees,
right?
Okay.
So if this was the normal fee,
right,
they're all getting more now.
Correct. Absolutely.
Same?
Yes, and so is the team.
Yeah.
But we always did before.
Yes.
And what we couldn't control before, though, was when you were a buyer's agent.
Right.
And now you can control
Yes.
that. Yes.
Okay, so again, this same thing, except for a couple of my super high-end brokers.
Okay.
They're like, hey, the market's the market. Everyone kind of knows what the amount that gets paid, if you will. And some of them said, I'm basically staying at market, though many of them are saying the offers I'm getting on my listings are ranging from $5 to, 1%.
Sure.
It's all over the board, right?
Right.
But they're maintaining that same number in the high end, and everybody else is saying we're actually above what we traditionally were on the buy side. Are you seeing the same?
Correct. Yes. And in fact, I recently had one of my super high-end clients for my market.
What does that mean? 475?
No, about 3 million. About
Whoa.
3 million, yeah.
Whoa.
And
Okay.
we were kind of texting back and forth, which
Yeah.
I hate. Try not to ever text about the bananas,
Yes,
right?
yes.
But in this scenario, it just had to happen.
Yes.
And I gave her some numbers,
Yeah.
and she said, "Oh, no, I didn't even pay that in Dallas."
Wow.
And I said, I'm so sorry that your realtor there wasn't a very good negotiator. And then she actually renegotiated with herself.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I think I could make that work, which
Yeah.
is still above.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
it is. I mean, again, for my friend listening, it's we have to be very mindful of
Yes,
the conversations
yeah.
these days, as we always have, but like way more so now. Okay, so let's switch gears. Because I wrote down, I've got 2 of my questions answered so far. Of like
Wait, let me
11.
say something about the fees really
Yeah,
quickly.
please,
So
please.
one of the times that I flew out, and I've been to so many, I don't remember if it was a summit or what, but one of the things that has made me hundreds of thousands of dollars, I was standing in line for the ladies' room, and these 2 little ladies, I wish I remembered their names, they were like late 70s from
Yes.
Hoboken.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. The killers from Hoboken, from New
yes,
Jersey. Yes.
and they were like 4 foot tall.
Yeah.
And they said, "Are you getting this or are you getting this?" And I said, "Oh well, I really try for this, but sometimes I get this."
Yeah.
And she said to me, "What about everything in the middle?" And I have never done an even fee now.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
like, right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I tell everyone that because
Yeah.
it's whether you're a buyer's, agent or
Yep.
a listing side, you do not have to do this
I think
or
there's
that.
something too, and it's funny, this was brought up in a mastermind, and this was talked about, like odd numbers.
Yes.
Like not a set, 1, 2, 3,
Right.
4, 7.
Exactly.
But
Yes.
3.85 or, and
Exactly.
again, I'm being mindful,
Right. But sometimes they have to
Right.
win. Let
Exactly.
them win.
Exactly.
Instead of going from a,
Yeah.
solid number to
Yes.
what everyone thinks, do,
Yeah.
0.85.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. Switching gears. You actually talked about the typical day, which was great. What would you say? So one of the questions I wrote down was, what's one of the most challenging aspects of selling 360 homes a year? And how do you overcome it?
Challenging aspects.
Like, what's one of the hardest parts of doing that? Like that amount of volume?
Honestly, scheduling.
Yeah.
You know, when you've got walkthroughs, home inspections, final walkthroughs, and then the actual closing itself.
Yes. Do you attend all the closings?
So I hit about 80% of them. There's a fair
That's
amount.
incredible.
Yeah.
On 150
but
transactions.
I don't stay for the
Okay.
2 hours worth
Yeah.
of paperwork.
Okay, so to be clear,
no.
yes. You walk in, hi, congratulations.
Exactly.
I'm so excited for you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's I've already gone through everything.
Yes.
There's no surprises. And honestly, for their sake, it's better because what I find is when the realtor is in the room, it takes twice as long, and they just want to get through it. Yes, they really like me. I'm part of the family now, and all of that. But at the end of the day, they've got to get back to work or get to the move or whatever.
Yeah. What would you say is one of the most valuable insights from doing this many transactions? So if the hardest part is schedule and staying on track, what would you say is one of the most valuable insights you've learned along the way of doing this much volume?
I would think it's mindset. You know, just if you think you can, you're right.
Yeah.
And if you think you can't, you're right. It's absolutely the truth. Yeah.
But how do you, like, for the person listening right now, like, it can, you and I, because of who we operate with and who our friends are and who we associate with, it gets so normal to have this kind of, like, the mastermind I was in yesterday, the average person in the room was doing 240 transactions a year.
Right.
Like that was the like so if you were doing 175, you felt like a schlep.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, Eric is doing 800, and Eric's like, I need to step up my game. You know, because he talks to Levi Rogers and he's doing 2,000. We operate at this level. The vast majority of people that are actually selling houses. Right. In the U.S., half the agents in the country have not closed a deal.
Oh gosh.
In the U.S., as of July, at the end of July, so let's call it August 1st, 72% of the agents in the country have had 0 listings sold. So there's a chance that someone listening right now is just going, Edna is inspiring, but like, what's my first 2 or 3 moves? How do I start to level up to that mindset, to that believability?
Well, they better have a coach. It sounds like they need to have a coach.
I agree.
That's the first thing. And the second thing is are you making it about the client? I keep going back to that.
Yeah.
It's if the client feels like they've been heard and understood and taken care of, and you asked the questions and let them do the talking, and then you really listen to what they're saying, you're going to know what their timeline is, what they need to do by when, and then, you know, have a listing S.O.P. How do you launch this listing, and where are you putting it, and what all? And here's the thing: I'm about the cheapest person in the world, right?
That's a shocker.
Social media is free.
Yes.
And so we will go out and we will shoot. Typically, you know, we promise our clients we'll have more than 50 professional style photos, but the average listing we have between 80 and 100 on MLS. And in fact, we just had our MLS, because of us, increase to 100.
I thought they were like complaining.
No. They probably were.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we shoot horizontal for YouTube, vertical for, everything else. And I mean, other than time, even if all you have is a cell phone, that's all free.
Right.
So it's launching the listing and really making sure that you're putting it out there is important.
I think the most important thing you keep saying is making it about the client.
Yes.
And yet, if you're selling, if you're not making enough money, or you're making a lot of money and you're spending it all, which some real estate professionals and entrepreneurs have a tendency to do, it only becomes about you.
Right.
I need this closing. I need this deal.
Yeah.
How do they get out of that?
So when I first realized you used to say digital mayor, digital, blah, blah, blah.
And I was like,
okay, I can do that.
That's
because
like
it's
a decade
free,
ago.
right?
Yeah.
It was free. And I was like, I could do that. So I couldn't afford to sponsor the movie in the park night.
Yeah.
So I would go to the Dollar Tree. Do you know what the Dollar Tree?
Okay. 99 store.
Yes,
I'm
exactly.
with you. Yes.
And some of the toy packages would be $1, but there would be 10 things in them, 10 glow stick bracelets or whatever. So I would spend, maybe $20
and get 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but if you spend $20, then,
Sure.
And then I would go to the movies in the park. and I would do a little, giveaway.
Right.
And it was basically costing me under $30.
Yes.
And then I just kept doing that, and I would have conversations with families and meet people, and then now I am the sponsor for Movies in the Park. So and that, I think that is again kind of gamifying it. Like I would go to Anaheim or Dallas, and people would be selling $1 million homes, and I was like, okay, instead of saying I can't do that, how can I figure out an inexpensive way to do the same thing?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so I just was able to build up. I got an assistant. Now I have a full-time marketing person, and I have a virtual assistant. So, and now I'm not having to do all of the things. Now Brittany's going to the dollar store.
Good. So once again, it's action solves everything.
Yes, absolutely.
I've had multiple people ask me, like, how do you ever have time to answer all these questions, like on Instagram or YouTube and Facebook? And I've never said this publicly, like on a podcast, so I'll share it with you, and then it'd be interesting for the person listening. Maybe, we'll see. The only time I do that is when I'm in my head struggling with a problem, have as Dr. Amen says, an automatic negative thought that I'm just, I'm having the wrong thoughts over and over again. And I'm like, I need to get out of this funk. And my way to get out of a funk is to help people.
Yes, that is so true.
So people are like, so like if some people go, oh my God, like I saw a month where you did it every single day. Yeah, it was a rough month. I was on the road nonstop. I was struggling. I was, I'm working, life, kids, wife, businesses, all these things happening. It's not always easy.
Right.
But for the person that's in that place, just consider if all I did was think about myself, all I'm going to do is perseverate.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be ugly, right? Because when we do that, we have a tendency to just gets deeper and darker and scarier. So instead, my thing is, okay, who's got a question on Instagram? How can I help? And every time I contribute to others, it lifts me out of it.
Yeah.
It gets me out of that, like that crazy eight, that psychological loop that we get into when we have those negative thoughts. So for the person listening, I mean, she's saying, I just get into action.
Absolutely.
Like what I hear is you're just massively resourceful.
Yeah.
If I can spend $1 and get 10, that's 10 kids I can hand it to. That's 10 conversations. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
That's action. Action.
Yeah. Are you looking for why you can't do it, or are you looking for a way to do it?
Yes.
That's the key.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. 2 last questions. How often do you role play, or do you?
No, we role play quite a bit. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. Our coach has the team role play.
That gal?
Yeah, that gal. I love you.
Yes,
in fact, she flew here to be with me today as my emotional support spirit
coming
animal.
From Mexico City, lady.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Sandra Hendricks in the house.
And so she role plays with the team pretty much once a week, but we also do it. I'm always available for them. And even though we don't necessarily consider it role playing, it is when they screenshot me something and say I need words, that's role playing because they're not going to ask me that again. We've been through it once. And if they come to me and say, hey, I've got this situation, then I'll say, okay, let's role play it. Yeah. Because thinking it in your head is not the same as saying it outside. If right now I said, somebody came in here and said, the building is on fire, and I was like, okay, first no one's good. But if I said, okay, everyone, get your bags and follow me, then you just do it.
Yes.
So having a ready answer, and again, it kind of goes back to that. There's only so many questions they can ask, so we kind of know what they're going to ask. Right. If you're not prepared, shame on you.
Well, if you go on 265 listing appointments, you already know what they're thinking. You're
That's
looking
true.
at them like, I got this listing.
Yes.
Or, this is going to be a challenge. Okay. Yeah. But if you only go on a few, the only way you gain any level of confidence is to practice over and over and over and over. So at least when you get out there, you're game ready. Right. That's the way I would define it.
Absolutely.
All right. Next question. I have so many questions, but I'm going to synthesize one of these. Okay. Here's actually an interesting question I wanted to ask. How do you stay ahead of market trends? Like the market's on the move, things are slower, cost of money, interest rates are now dropping. How do you stay ahead, and then how do you communicate that to the market?
So I stay ahead because I'm with the Tom Ferry group. I mean, seriously, like just being in, the chat rooms and kind of figuring out, and I'm like,
what's everybody else talking about?
I didn't know that was coming. What is that? I've never heard of that, you know? And it's like anything else. Where do you put your energy and your time? And I just try to make sure that I start with, listening to your podcast, being on BAM, all of those.
Yeah.
And it's shocking sometimes because we're in a small rural area, town of 17,000 people.
Right.
And we've had some small owner-owned brokerages where they did not know as of now about the commission and the NAR settlement. And I just want to make sure I'm never that person.
Yes.
So
Yes.
just staying with people who know what's in the know, and then doing my own research and leaning into it and not being afraid of it, not being fearful of it. And if there is something I don't know, I reach out to Sandra and I'm like, hey, what is this?
Yeah.
Where do I go for this?
Yeah.
What's happening? Yeah.
I think it's, you're spot on. I think you got to have a bunch of different sources. Like I read like Housing Wire and I read Bloomberg, and I'm like, I listen to 5 different podcasts to try and just stay. And even then I sit with other friends of mine and I'm like, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Right. So it's
never be the smartest person in the room.
I got that one down. My dinner tonight with some people. I'm like, okay, tell me more. just give me everything. All right. The big question I wanted to ask you is, let's talk marketing.
Okay.
Right. So how big is your database?
We're right at 21,000 people.
Okay. And there's 17, how many
17,000 people in our town.
So how does that work? You have more people in your database than you have people in your town. How does that work?
We actually work an entire county,
Okay.
so we'll do and over into a few. We typically
Sure.
stay within an hour drive.
Okay.
Is what we tried because I really don't feel like you can be an expert with something
I
3
gotcha.
hours away.
Yeah.
But one of the big things that we did last year is we purchased from a young family. They had moved to town about 12 years ago, and they had started a Facebook page called What to Do in Tahlequah.
Yeah.
And they really just weren't doing it themselves. They had
Yes.
kind of handed it off to someone else. And I had gone to one of the trainings, and it came up, and I was like,
Facebook groups
I
for
wonder
sure.
how
Yeah.
I could do that.
Yeah.
So I contacted them, and I think they had 15,000 followers, something, people over a 10-year time frame. And so I said, would you be interested in selling that? Because they weren't working it. And she was like, yeah, but what does that look like? And I said, well, you give me a number.
Yeah.
And so they came back they ended up selling it for around $1,500.
Oh.
And so now my marketing team and Brittany work that, and
So great.
we're north of 20,000 on it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cost anything.
Right. Right.
Right. And then of course we have the database.
Database,
And we have a strong presence on Instagram, all social media. We even do Snapchat, which
All right. TikTok?
TikTok
Okay,
is
first
my
you're like, of
favorite.
course, like,
TikTok's
hello.
my favorite,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. So Snap, TikTok, Insta, which means Meta. Are you on YouTube?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, very
YouTube?
strong. I think we're at about 2,500 followers, which I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but they're real. Those are the hard ones to get.
Right.
Yeah.
I
so,
agree.
So we're excited about that.
LinkedIn?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So, all right.
LinkedIn, Pinterest.
Pinterest? Okay. Do you have a Google page?
Oh, yes.
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 And lots of reviews there?
Yes. We are setting at, oh my gosh, I should know this. It's over 100. Yeah.
Just looking to coach.
200.
Right? Coach is like, you have over 200.
Yeah, yeah.
So Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Meta, YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Google. How many email addresses do you have?
Well, so the email addresses were, I'm going to say 22,000. So because of the database, the way we do that.
So if I was, and do you do direct mail?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We do
How much-
postcards.
How much direct mail?
We do a form of just listed and a
Sure.
form of just sold.
Okay.
So
JLJS.
so it
for,
just
for
kinda-
every listing sold or just
Yes.
yours?
for every listing sold.
And that's got to be like 200 plus of the
Right.
360 transactions?
Yes, yeah. And when
250 each time, 500 each time, 1,000 each time? Just trying to get a sense
probably
of how
about
much.
500 each time. Yeah.
Okay, so
because we send them within wherever the home was sold. We try to do like a radius.
Yeah.
But we print off an additional 50 each.
Yeah.
And we have them setting over. So if someone raises their hand and then starts ghosting us, they get a just sold postcard every 3
Smart.
days
Oh,
until they call
smart.
me to tell me to stop.
Yeah.
And then game on. and I offer to come and pick those up so I
Yeah.
can shred them because, they've usually kept
Sure,
them.
sure.
And then now, while I'm here, can I see the house? And I
Yes.
have a sign in the car and a lockbox and
We're
game
ready to
on.
go.
Yeah.
So if I was on your email list, give me like a sense of frequency. Is everybody on the same cadence? Or
No,
is it
everyone's
divided up?
everyone's a little bit different, but what is kind of standard is everyone gets every Friday they receive a newsletter with what's happening, farmers market, concerts, whatever's happening in
Around
town.
town, yeah.
Yes,
Good.
and then we'll do a couple of featured listings on there, and then usually there's like a talking head video that I've done earlier
Yes.
in the week that's
Yeah.
repurposed for that.
Okay, so every Friday around town, couple featured listings, and one of your like best promoted videos, or like whatever
Correct.
most meaningful.
Yeah.
Any other emails?
I'm sure there is. I just can't think of what it is right now. So definitely like when there's a hot property that's
Yes.
come on, we do
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
But we love Bomb Bomb, and we will shoot a Bomb Bomb video for listings, and we have a like a whiteboard in the back with their address in the middle and all the things. So all you
Yes.
have to do is change the address.
Yes.
And sometimes there's some things that don't work. So you
Sure.
just, and then I'll have my assistant and virtual assistant if she's in the office and marketing, and we'll shoot just literally a 30-second video saying,
Yes.
here are the things we're doing. I would love to have a chat with you. We understand if you're too busy, but just wanted you to know we're on top of this.
And we love Bomb Bomb because you know who
yes.
opened it, did they share
Yes.
it? Like there's just
Yes,
so many insights there.
absolutely.
So direct mail, email, very targeted email with Bomb
Yes.
Bomb,
Yeah.
tons of social.
Yeah.
What else? What else did you guys do? Open houses?
Oh my gosh. We do open houses. We try to do at least 4 to 5 every weekend because
Okay.
we'll do Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
And those are every weekend.
Yes.
And we have a billboard. We have QR codes everywhere that lead back to a link tree
Yeah.
so that they can make an appointment with me, and
Yeah.
it's just a quick phone call. But again, it's a major hand raise when they do that.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Linktree on like Insta.
Correct.
Right? And do you find most of your action is on Insta, or do you get some DMs from Snapchat and TikTok and others?
TikTok, yeah, I get Snapchat. I mean, I get DMs from all of those,
Yes.
but honestly, Facebook is probably my sweet spot.
For sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
and that's where I'm getting the most from
a
right
lot
now.
of people totally listen to me. A lot of people do not pay enough attention to Facebook.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, like we all get enamored by TikTok and Instagram and Reels, and then when I look at all the activity like of our business, I'm like, it's Facebook.
Yeah. Well, and
Right.
I'm really listing focused.
Yes.
And so Facebook is where the listings are. Insta and TikTok. Hey, I would think I might like to buy a house,
Right.
and they're a
Exactly.
first time buyer, and that's awesome and great.
Yep.
And
they're
that goes
like,
to the
I
team.
see you everywhere.
Yes,
And you're
that
like,
is the
"Thank
key.
you."
If they're
Yes.
not saying that, then I'm like, okay, we got to double down.
Yes. All right. So as we sit here September 25th, we've been jamming. This has been super valuable, and I'm so glad you made this trip. And you coming all the way from Mexico City, thank you. What do you want to do next year? What are you thinking about? You've been hovering at like this, this
Yeah.
range of transactions for a while, and I'm not judging at all. It's,
Yeah.
it's
No.
insanely
It's
great.
fine. Yeah.
Is it next year is more time off? Is it next year more time with the grandkids? Is it buying more investment properties? Is it selling more homes? You and I live in a world of this and that. We're not this or that.
Yeah,
what are you thinking about?
Probably a little bit of all of that
Yeah.
because we have 35 35 long-term rentals and 5 short-term rentals,
Yeah.
and then 2 commercial buildings that we've purchased. So we're probably we've kind of taken a hiatus this last year because we overbought last year, and then
Sure.
we got to get those finished. But we'll
Yeah.
probably lean more into that. Time off for me looks like traveling to see other Tom Ferry clients.
Really?
So I'm going to Carousel.
Love it.
Yes, to see
Good.
Nick. Nick is
Good.
going to host a little
Awesome.
get-together that Coach is helping us put together.
Yep.
And then next year, I think we're going to the south of France with some clients.
Do I get an invitation to this? I just came back from Saint-Tropez. I'm in. Like,
do you
let's
know?
go.
2 years ago, she made us all make a bet, and
I remember.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we were all under the Eiffel Tower at midnight on New Year's Eve.
I remember, and I saw all the photos, and I was like, "Thanks for the invite, Coach. Thanks."
So definitely more travel, but
good.
I truly do love what I'm doing. And so
Yes.
if I can connect with other Tom Ferry clients and
Yeah.
figure out what they're doing in their market, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how big or how small their market is. If they're winning,
Yeah.
tell me about that, and let me
Right.
figure out how we can do that too.
Right, and
So-
you're playing while you're there, because I see you like with like Lou's in
Yeah.
Europe and all these other incredible clients that are all over the place.
But that's when it's like standing
For
in line
that's
talking to two ladies.
this or that, right? Like,
Exactly.
go in
I'm
between.
like, I didn't know there was an in
Yeah.
between. Yeah.
I love it. I
So-
love it. Well, I am so grateful for you. It has been so much fun just to watch you. And I know every time I can just call you and say, will you be on stage? Will you share?
Yeah.
Like, you light up the room just the way you're like lighting me up just with your smile and your eyes and all your energy. I think I got through like 6 or 7 of like all the questions I wanted to ask. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to share before we close?
I think I just kind of want to take the opportunity to say how much the Tom Ferry coaching has made a difference in my life, because, and I've said this on stage, but I'll say it again. Yeah. It's finding your tribe.
Yes.
And likeness attracts likeness, and the mindset. It's all about the mindset.
Yes.
And being able to just, I went on a health journey, I went on a money journey, I went on, and now I'm helping my team do that. And it's just really, I love giving to them, because I feel like I've taken so much, and so that's like, if you say, do you want to fly down here? I'm like, yes, I will be happy to do that, because
Thank you.
Again, if you don't have a coach, get a coach. Call Tom.
Don't call me directly. That was horrible. That was like a bad close. You are a blessing. Thank you so much. I hope you should follow Edna Kimble on every social site. You can reach her via email. Anywhere you go, you type in her name, like she's everywhere in her town. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
and
Tom.
Thank you, Coach, for helping make this happen. And I look forward to seeing you probably in the next couple of weeks at an event.
Yes, end of October.
So, hey, make sure you subscribe if you haven't, like this if you haven't, and make sure you connect with her someplace on social. Like, she shares so much good content, not just for like her community, but for real estate agents. So check her out on all the social channels, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next show. Thanks so much.